The Project. Kuwait. Learn. Live.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Project. And in today's episode, I sit down with Coach Saad and we go over a wide range of different things. Most importantly, we go over movement and lack of movement. Yes, lack of movement, because we all struggle with getting those 8 to 10,000 steps in a day. And in this episode, Coach Saad breaks down a lot of different tips and tricks so that we can get those steps in. And it's overall a great conversation. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. So without further ado, here's Coach Saad.
All this and more in today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Project. I am joined by Coach Saad from one of our local gyms here in Kuwait. And I have seen Coach Saad, or I've known him for almost a year now, right?
Yeah.
We're creeping up on almost a year, a little bit more since you came to Kuwait.
Time flies.
And he's one of those trainers where I've always seen him grinding, and not in the other sense, but grinding as in grinding in work. He's always with a client. He's always working on different movement techniques. I've seen nothing but good from Coach Saad. And he's the type of trainer that I think other trainers should emulate, so to speak, because there are certain movement patterns that the mainstream trainers are forgetting these days, right?
Yeah, true.
So,
True.
I mean, tell us a little bit about your background and, why you always have your nose in a book too, man.
Well, thank you very much for all the compliments first. So my name is Saad. I'm a trainer. I was born and raised in France. So about my background, I went to Sports Science University. I stayed there for 4 years. Then after I was working as a freelancer in France. I hold also a certificate as a boxing trainer because that was like my first sport since I was 12 years old. So far, right after 2 years of practice in France, I had the opportunity to come to Kuwait. And then I came here, and actually I feel like I started studying more when I came here because I faced like a way more problems.
Yeah, we're different animals over here.
yeah, definitely. Not problems, even with my knowledge. Like, I just feel like, because my degree is like specific for conditioning, okay? Like specific conditioning integrated to your sport. So I've been taught that how to train someone to become a baseball player and someone how to become a swimmer, how to be a better fighter or a better football player. But I felt when I came here that I was like, okay, but I don't have the athletes that I had before. I just feel like I have like a lack of knowledge in certain things. So I got to study a bit more. Just for fun, I did a cupping therapy course to learn more about recovery and everything, and did a couple of others since then about like posture correction, all like related to movement and like, let's say more like physics and movement. Just to be a bit more nerdy.
Well, that is pretty nerdy. So going on that, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
You say you worked with athletes and you've worked on athletic training specifically for different sports. When you came to Kuwait, obviously the gym that you're at, all right, is I would say a higher echelon big box gym, so to speak. You get some of the cream of the crop that are going there. Mm-hmm. And they're probably some of the most out of shape people in Kuwait, especially with the rise in obesity. Mm-hmm. So here's my question. What are some of the biggest observations that you've had in the past year about the Kuwaiti client, because they're so far away from the sports, the athletes?
Yeah.
If you get a guy that's 100 kilos overweight, you've got a big job on your hands.
Yeah,
so
that's not just
walk us through your observations over the last year, what you've seen out of the society. And
so I've been here for 2 years and a half now.
Yep.
What's interesting is I actually like the example of the overweight guy because for me that's one of the most interesting type of I would say like athlete that you can have, is that you cannot just throw any exercise. You cannot take someone who's 145 kilos and just make him do squat jumps the same way as you're going to do with someone who's 65 kilos. Because you got to learn how joints are reacting and how muscles are reacting. And we're talking about someone that's having probably around like maybe 80 kilo extra fat. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's much more dangerous. So you're going to learn how to create certain programs like specific for those kind of people. So the same way as I've learned to create programs for athletes, you learn how to create a program for someone who has an issue. So it's kind of the same structure, but different approach. So my observations in Kuwait in general, I have been honestly shocked by the lack of activity, which I think is mostly a cultural problem. I'll give you like a comparison with Europe in general. Is just the first thing is I see a lot of kids in Kuwait not doing any sport, nothing except going to maybe trampo, because we get trampo next to the gym, like play around, or just 1 or 2 activity per month. And I just realized that, man, like when we're young, I mean, my generation, and I know for a fact that even the next generation, because I get nephews in France and everything, and even the previous one, they were being active. I mean, no, I'm not even still talking about playing outside and everything, but like parents throws you in sport.
Yeah.
You want it or
was
not?
Big back then,
Yeah. You want it or not, you go to a sport club and you do it, whatever. It can be football, boxing, karate, judo, swimming, whatever. You do it. You have to.
But to be fair, and I think this is something a lot of our listeners, most of our listeners might not even know about. Back when I was a kid in Kuwait, I was about 11 years old or 10 years old when I joined Qatsiya Club. I was actually, believe it or not, I started in gymnastics, went into diving, like diving off of 3 meters and so forth.
Yeah.
And back then, it was very well structured. You had the clubs going to schools, taking kids out, signing us up. Yeah. Whereas now, we don't have that in Kuwait. So I think that's the bigger problem that, as a Kuwaiti, that I've seen in society is it's not offered up. Yeah. So with that, what would you recommend to parents? Given the heat and given all the constraints and
follow Mahdi on Instagram and do the same thing as he does. No, honestly, that's pretty simple. I mean, I'm not a parent yet, so I can't really give that kind of.
But
example.
from a performance perspective, because you see me with my kid.
Yeah,
I'm trying to, and I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. I'm trying to develop an athlete.
Yeah.
So I try to keep him in. He's got CrossFit. He's got swimming. Yeah. He's got soccer. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do from the parent side. Yeah. From a professional side, from where you are, what are some of the things we should start with? I mean, is it gymnastics? Is it weightlifting? Is it just throw your kid in a playground and get him out there and playing? Like it's such a difficult thing in Kuwait because of the climate. But what would you recommend from an athletic perspective?
Honestly, in my opinion, the 3 best sports for kids, like for developing their body and their motor pattern, will be first swimming, because I think it's a really good way of working on the muscles without having any huge impact on the joints or anything, especially in a growing body.
Yes.
The second thing will be, I really like judo as an activity for a kid, because it teaches the kid how to move around, how to move on the floor, how to fall and everything. And I know for a fact, because I got a lot of friends that are judo fighters, that for kids, they have like specific like sessions that it's more like playful, We cannot really talk about a workout for a kid, but more of a, like, you play judo, you know what I mean? You play swimming. And the third sport that I'm going to say would be more, I love for kids, I don't know how is it in Kuwait, but like teach a kid how to run, because we have so many kids here. We have so many people here spending the whole day sitting. School, car, home, car. School or home, work, car, So at the end, we are adults. I mean, we're grown. Our bones are done. Everything is fine. I mean, we are what we are. Kids are still growing. I love to use this analogy of, when the plant is growing and they put, I don't know how you call it in English, this stick that you put next to it to tie it around to make sure it grows properly.
Yes, yeah.
So basically what we're doing with our kids is just you throw them in school and they're just sitting like this and slouching with the shoulders forward and like they're like over flexion of their spine, and they're growing that way. Because I'm sorry, if you with a kid who's, I don't know, how old is your son? 4 years old?
He's 4. If you look at kids now, kids that are in their teens now compared to kids in their teens in the 90s, you can notice a significant difference of upper cross.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that. It's scary.
Yeah,
it's very scary. And they're developing health problems right now.
Yeah.
They're developing back issues. And when I was a kid, I never remember having any muscle or anything hurt. So it's like when I see you sometimes with your clients teaching movement patterns with adults, I see you kind of sometimes breaking them back down to being a kid.
Yeah.
With some of those movements. So.
You have to sometimes. And as you were saying earlier, you have to go back to basics. You cannot, it breaks my heart when I see people coming to the gym and going for training. You see, they're going either to class or to PT and they just like learn how to do like a snatch or like very complex movements or like clean and press or whatever, or like even like squat. I'm sorry, like a back squat, for example, but so most of the people, besides having a really bad joint alignment, don't even know how to walk. Just for the example, it happened to me that I got like new people coming to me and wanting to train, for example, for running for a race. Like people come to me like, okay, there is whatever, like an Ironman or a marathon or a sprint. And when I just watch the way they run, it's just so bad. Like so bad. I'm not in the way that they are bad, in the way that it would be so harmful. And then I just watched it. I watched them and I stopped there and I'm like,
would you say it's their gait or their foot alignment? Like where would you see one of the biggest problems with runners? Because in around the world, you see people, it's like, oh, okay, I want to get in shape. First thing they do is, I'm going to go run tomorrow morning. And it's like, like you can run, but running is, I think, number one in terms of injuries. I think it's the number one thing people do that causes injuries.
I'd say football.
Maybe. I mean, you never know. I mean, that's what I read in the research. That it was running, long distance running, to be specific.
Yeah.
But research is research. You can get research to interpret anything you want these days. So.
That's true. But look, honestly, I don't think I'm not in those guys that will say, okay, you should never run until you get the perfect alignment and a perfect posture, because perfect posture doesn't exist.
Yes.
There is no physiotherapist or no trainer that's going to tell you, I had this guy, his alignment is perfect. Doesn't exist. Even every sport that you're doing is shaping your body in a certain way.
Well, that's the thing with professional athletes. They're manipulating their body. That's why they're so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In terms of running, I mean, for example, with that person that I had, I make that person run. Definitely. Okay. This athlete is going to run anyway. But make sure that you're doing specific exercises to correct it, to make it like go toward the proper alignment and the proper technique. Yeah. And a proper, even like when I say proper technique is like, using your arms to give more momentum.
The arm swing, yes.
Like, like athletes were like sprinters would understand what I'm saying when I say like, when you have to scratch the floor instead of landing flat foot on the floor or striking with your heel, but like scratching kind of with your toes on the floor just to make you more efficient when you run.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know if you're aware of, or if you have ever heard of Exos. I think they were formerly owned by Onnit, and then they went off on their own way. But they're very much about corrective movement patterns or some corrective exercises. Because at the end of the day, you can't really correct movements that you've done for 30 years. It's just not. It's not happening. You're never gonna correct that. But you can better it through certain things. And as a baseball player, your baseball swing kind of gets set in stone at a certain age. And for me, it's like I've always had this big loopy swing, and I dilute my power. So I learned to hold back a little bit and use my hips more through CrossFit. Yeah. So it's you can do that, correct? But how hard is it, or how difficult is it to unlearn some of the bad behaviors and movement patterns that you've seen, through your experience?
It's not the hardest thing. It's the longest thing. It's not super hard in the way that the process is very simple, by the way. You just break down the movement. I mean, let's say, I don't know, give me, like a very simple.
Let's go back to the bench press.
Okay, bench press. Let's see what the worst dysfunction that I would see in the bench press is having some people, for example, like bringing their arms, like their elbows, like almost above the shoulders.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
To do that, for example, or I don't know. I mean, bench press is not the worst because it's very like.
Okay, deadlift, because you get the person that will round their back in a deadlift. I'd say that's another one.
Yeah.
You know, the rounding of the back in a deadlift. What you go ahead, and then I could tell you about my experience with the deadlift, which is pretty funny. So I'll throw it your way.
For deadlift, okay, I have Let's call him Jim.
Jim. I was gonna say Joe.
Okay, let's say Joe. Okay, average Joe. Okay, he's coming and he's having a rounded back when like excessive like flexion of his spine when he's deadlifting. So and he's doing deadlift like real deadlift like heavy weight. Okay. And he doesn't have back pain yet because usually it doesn't happen the first day. It happens within a few weeks to a few months. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna stop him. I'm like, okay, man, just go and grab this like 12 or 16 kilos kettlebell stand. Okay, then we're gonna fix first the feet position if it's wrong, the knee alignment, and we're gonna go back to like reduced movement, which for example like Romanian deadlift, where you let's say like you kind of freeze your legs and really focus on your hip hinge, like and
what movement would emulate the Romanian deadlift that people would do on day to day, so that they can understand that through radio or through podcasting. Like, what is a Romanian deadlift versus a regular deadlift?
So what you're gonna do, like, Romanian deadlift is, it's funny because in this part of the world, I give the example like I'm like, you know, when people pray, like just like keep your leg kind of straight and just incline your upper back. That's
okay,
it.
Yeah, that's a very good example. Like actually, that's an awesome example right there.
Like for example, like just give them this cue because even people that don't pray. I mean, that's not the problem. It's like just people like can't picture it properly because sometimes it's just all about like visualizing the movement, or just tell them, okay, imagine that you want to pick up something from the floor, but you don't want to use your legs because you know, like you can. I mean, technically go and squat to pick something from the floor, but okay, let's say you're lazy, but you want to keep your back straight and you want to pick up something from the floor. So,
which then it engages the hamstrings and causes you to bring the hips through. Yeah.
Exactly. So usually, you know, you can use like some tools, for example, like put this like the PVC pipe all along their spine and say, okay, like this has to touch this part and this part. And okay, like check yourself. I use a lot of mirrors. Like for me, the mirror is like the most used tool in the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want I want people to have like certain cues, certain feelings when they do the workout. Like for example, for Romanian deadlift, I'm gonna tell them, okay, you're gonna go all the way down, okay, and like inclining your back, okay, keep your leg like slightly bend your legs, incline your back forward, and I want you to feel the stretch in your hamstring when you arrive around your knees, for example. And I'm like, if you feel it, that means you're in a good way to doing it right. If you don't feel it, that means something is wrong and your back is not properly extended and everything. So, and then I just tell them, okay, now that you've been doing it properly, I mean, you've been in a certain way and you feel it in yourself, check yourself in the mirror and see if you're doing it right or not. Because I tell them, like, I want you to be able to do it when you're going to come and train on your own. Because for me, in my opinion, that's the best thing a coach can do, is teach you how to move. I mean, I can go behind you and put my hand and tell you, okay, I'll press on your back and make sure you keep your back straight. But the best thing that I can do as a trainer and make sure someone is becoming an athlete.
Yeah, you're like a psychologist. You know, in psychology, if you have a client with you for more than 6 months, you're doing something wrong. But at the same time, as a trainer, you know, like for me, for instance, I've been with the same coach for a year now. He coached me through rehabbing me back into baseball. Yeah. And now he's my CrossFit coach. So I've been with him for a year.
I see you doing muscle ups right now.
I'm trying like hell, man. But it is just, I can't get that flip of the wrist right now.
It's going to come with time for sure. It's practice.
Yeah, and it's practice.
That's such a stubborn thing to do, muscle ups. Yeah. Like, just got to be super stubborn all the time.
I know, it does suck. But going back to deadlifts, and the reason why I wanted to throw something that I was an overweight guy. And back when I was weightlifting when I was younger, we really didn't do deadlifts that much. Yeah. It was kind of frowned upon. You know, that was the movement that, you know, CrossFit brought deadlifts back to life. I think CrossFit brought deadlifts and squats back to life.
Yeah, I think
because in the gyms through the 90s and, you know, early 2000s, not a lot of people were doing the deadlift or the squat. You'd go in and the squat rack would be, you know, covered in dust. You know, So then when I came back into the gym scene in 2009-ish, that's when I started seeing deadlifts, squats. And then when 2013, when I was like, all right, I need to transform my body because I'm just unhealthy at this point.
Yeah.
I started with basically like an average Joe program. Very simple movements, one complex movement per the program day. And it was a push-pull with 2 or 3 days of conditioning. And it was short conditioning, like 15 minutes.
All right.
You know, you try and do 15 wind sprints, 15 or 16 wind sprints. It'd be like a 100-meter dash, 50 meters walking rest. You know, just to get the conditioning up. And it really helped me out during that time. But going back to the deadlifts, I started out with single-legged RDL, single-legged Romanian deadlifts to get my hamstrings engaged because I was sitting down so long. And it's just everyone's got their own technique. Everyone's got their own their own effect. But how hard is it to get people to go back to square one and do the movement like a single-legged Romanian deadlift, where that's, for our listeners, you stand on one leg, you put one leg back, right? You know, you can correct me here if I'm wrong. And then you reach down to the ground on one leg and basically come back up using your hamstring and your hip to go through the movement. Yeah. Correct?
Yeah, just like a lever movement with your leg.
Yeah. Almost like a pendulum?
Exactly.
Yeah. I would say almost like a pendulum. But how hard is it to convince these guys that are coming into you, especially the athletes, to go back to square one?
Look, honestly, I don't know if you're asking about how to convince them to do it, like how important it is, or how to teach them. Teaching them is not the hardest part, honestly.
Okay.
It's pretty easy if you know the cues, if you have a little bit of experience, and if you can just explain it in a certain way, okay? Sometimes you have to explain it in 5 different ways for the guy to understand. But the hardest part would be to convince someone that's how important it can be. So, for example, I'll take the squat, for example. I have people that, there is a lot of people having a lack of mobility on dorsiflexion of their foot. So when they squat, they tend to not go all the way down, or to just incline their back away too forward, so which put too much pressure on their back.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they get stuck to a certain level, a certain point. They get stuck because they don't really use their legs as much as they should. All of that, it's a mechanical problem. So what's happening is you got to convince them to come 10 minutes earlier, and to do some stretches for their calves, and to do some mobilization for their ankles, and so. And that's the hardest part, because people don't really take it seriously.
No, you're right. They don't really pay attention to it, and it's
And you cannot blame it on people, because it's in the fitness industry for decades now that we've been misunderstanding stretching. When I was at university, they were teaching all the time, they're saying you should never do any passive stretch before working out. Never. That increases the risk of getting injuries. And a few years later, they're just telling you, okay, now see the bigger picture. We're talking a guy that had been having shortened muscle because he was sitting for 8 hours. And you're telling him that he shouldn't do any static exercise, but he needs to do it. And he's actually gonna enhance and improve the performance if he does it.
Yeah.
If he does passive stretches before his warm up, and this is gonna improve the performance. And that's the complete opposite of what I've been learning at university. But still, it's pretty new for some people. It's still pretty new. It's still something like, okay, it's just stretching, who cares?
I'm still Generation X. Like, my stretching, it's so bad. I was so bad before. I'd go in, I'd do some arm circles, stretch my triceps out, and then I'd be like, all right, let's go. So you're right. I mean, stretching is such an important movement. Here's a question for you. What about people that sit behind a desk all day?
Yeah.
Okay. This is like your cup of tea right here, I'm assuming. Would you recommend doing some static stretching for, say, about 20 minutes during their lunch break?
Definitely. Look, I'm going to tell you what I usually tell to people that trains with me. I give them a few advices. Not only about stretching, but about, and we're gonna come to that point about general activity.
Yep.
I give them some, let's say, rules or like small challenges that they have to do every day. So, for example, I'm telling them, and some people, if they listen to that podcast, they're going to recognize themselves. I'm going to tell them, okay, whenever you have a phone call at the office, stand up.
Yeah.
Like stand up and walk. Whenever you have a phone call, that's it. Like just make it as a statement. I have a phone call, I stand up and I walk around. Whenever you need to print something, print it as far as possible. Okay? If you're in your office, if your printer is connected to all the printers in the floor, print it in another office, just stand up and go and pick it up.
Yeah.
If you're working, let's say at the, I don't know, like some buildings are super high, but you're working at the 20th floor of a building, when you're done with your day, try to go use the stairs at least for 2-3 floors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And grab the elevator at the floor number 17 or 16 if you can. That's it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And this is just for the activity part, which we're going to talk about a bit later. But about the stretching,
that's going to be a fun part.
Yeah. I'm gonna get emotional. Okay.
Hey, me and you both, man. Me and you both, definitely. But yeah, let's get through the boring part of the stretching, and then we'll get to the meat of the conversation.
So for stretching, I usually depends on who. Obviously, it depends on the kind of workouts and everything. But if I have people like athletes that are dedicated and everything, I try to give them like some routine of warm up and stretches before they come. For example, someone who's sitting all day, I'm just gonna, how, like, for example, just one example, like hip flexors is shortened.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna tell them, okay, all right, no matter what you're doing, if you're doing, we're talking about weightlifting, okay? Go and stretch your hip flexors for 2 minutes per side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do some activation for your core. Okay. Give me like 3 sets of 30-second plank, for example.
So just to clear it up for the listeners, your hip flexors.
Yeah.
They insert from the top of the abdomen, right?
So basically, hip flexors are like the muscle that connects upper body and lower body, and is responsible for whenever you're gonna lift up your knee, whenever you're gonna like lower, like incline your back and everything.
Okay, all right, I get what you're saying. All right, so yeah, that's the muscle. It's basically between your belly button to each side of your pelvic bone.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to give people a visual of what we're talking about, because you have some people that are gonna be like, "What the hell is a hip flexor?" Which is
True.
I want to break it down for average people so they understand what the hip flexor is. And I'm assuming one of the better or a good stretch that I've used is I sit down on my knees like praying, and then just kind of arch my back backwards and push my hips up. That gives me a good stretch before squat. I mean, I don't know what you advise your clients on. But
there is a bunch of stretches, honestly. There is like
So follow Saad. Follow Saad on Instagram, and he'll put some stretches up there by the time this episode drops. So now you got to put some hip flexor stretches up there.
All right.
Average Joe's going to be looking out for it, man.
Definitely. Hip stretches tomorrow morning on my Instagram. So for hip flexors, there is like maybe 10 different ways of stretching your hip flexors, especially that for any stretch, you sometimes like have to stretch like a group of muscles.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to stretch your hip flexors, and you're going to stretch as well like your rectus femoris, okay, which is like basically the muscle like right on top of your quads of your thighs, okay? So
there's a muscle up there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Rectus femoris. Google it.
I will Google. I'll Google that later, man.
So what's happening is you gotta stretch it as well. But you have a bunch of exercises. You can go on your knees and put one knee forward. You know, like when you do a proposal.
Yes. Yeah.
And you just like try to bring your hips more like forward to feel the stretch. Like you basically feel it, as you said, between the belly button and let's say your upper thigh, if I can say so. More in the inner sides, like more, inner thighs, like under the belly button, goes up on the side of your hip somehow. Trying to break it down,
Yeah, no, that's fine, man. All right, I mean, at the end of the day, anyone who's listening to this can go on Google and just like type in hip flexors. And if you have lower back pain, I found with me, sometimes to relieve my lower back pain short term, I just stretch out my hip flexors, and it makes like right away I feel a difference in lower back pain. But anyone who wants it, you can Google hip flexor stretches on Google it, or just go onto YouTube.
Yeah,
and there's plenty of them out there.
it's actually interesting that what you're saying about hip flexors and back pain, and I actually advise people to go on and Google anterior pelvic tilt. It's actually one of the syndrome that appears.
Lower cross syndrome, yeah. It's from sitting all day.
Exactly, and that's most of the time causes back pain, and this can help a lot. So basically, I mean, your hip flex, basically your body is working. It's once you learn, I'm like, let's say a physiology and anatomy nerd. I love it, but you just realize that your body is an amazing machine that compensates everything. Your body adapts to anything you're doing, anything. Even if you're doing a training, your body adapts, builds on strength or muscles or resistance, or whatever. You're having a bad posture, your body adapts, the mechanic changes, the muscles adapt. It's crazy how amazing the capacity of the body to adapt to anything. And sometimes it's for a good thing, sometimes for a bad thing. I mean, if you're doing a bad thing, if you're sitting all day, you develop lower cross and upper cross syndromes, which leads to back pain or shoulder pain, neck pain, migraines. I mean, there is a bunch of pains and aches that you can develop out of this. So,
and people think it's from going to the gym. They're like, "Oh, I went to the gym. I'm so sore." It's not from the gym, dude. It's from sitting down all day and then going and being active without properly warming up, without properly stretching, and just all of that incorporated into it.
But actually, what's fun is most of people with those postural dysfunctions, when they go to the gym, it flares up because they just realize that you cannot put your body into such tension and having such a bad mechanic. And that's why some people don't understand. Sometimes they come and they start and they're doing very basic movement. They're like, my back hurts. Oh, for instance, I've seen people doing planks, okay, which is for me the most basic fitness movement you can do, because whenever you're going to squat, whenever you're going to deadlift or push press or even pull up, whatever, you need to know how to activate your core. And I think
it's one of the best movements you could do is a plank. Yeah.
Plank and its variations, in my opinion, is one of the best core exercise. So sometimes you just go for a basic plank with people and they tell me they don't tell me, oh, my abs burn, my core burn. It's working hard. My back hurts. Because they don't know how to engage, how to activate the muscle.
Yeah.
So we're facing another problem. We're not even trying to improve the athletic performance. We're trying to teach people how to activate certain muscles.
Because when you're sitting down all day, your abdomen, your ab muscles just shut off. Mm-hmm. They virtually just switch off. And when they switch off, you're probably using different muscles to hold your body up or hold your upper torso up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know personally for me, when I get into a plank and I really actively engage my abs and my core, I know my back pain usually alleviates for a little while. It definitely does help for me personally. And I think everybody's different at the end of the day. Everybody's so different. Like you said, we're all different machines. And for me, it's I do a couple of planks. When I do planks consistently throughout the day at work, it's amazing. My back pain goes away.
Well, you do planks at work?
Yeah, man.
That's amazing.
I make it a general principle to walk. We'll get into that. Well, then I could share some of my secrets about how to stay active during the day. But here's another question for you that we kind of hit on. We talked about a little bit, and we were getting to is, how important is strength training opposed to walking and jogging, which everyone in Kuwait, when you say, oh, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I exercise, I go for a walk. Or, oh, I exercise, I'm jogging.
Yeah.
So how important is strength training versus the walking and the jogging? Because each has its own place. But if you, in my opinion, at least, if you're a runner, you're building up your endurance and you're losing muscle because you're teaching your body to, hey, I don't need all this excess weight. So what's your take on that?
It depends what you mean by strength exercises.
Just lifting weights, not heavy weights, but for the average person, not sitting there doing a 35-pound bicep curl, but just making sure they're engaging the muscle groups, doing a push-pull routine 3 times a week or 2 times a week. How how'd you gauge that against the walkers and the joggers? Because you see a lot of people that they're advocates about running and how it's so, the health benefits are amazing from it. And, then you have the other people that are advocates about strength training. So I'm assuming you're the type of coach where you want your clients to do a little bit of both, maybe keep it even. But what's your take on that? Just out of curiosity, your general opinion.
Honestly, in our world, like nowadays in our society, including like all countries in the world, by the way, I mean, most of the like Western countries, like Europe, America, and Middle East, at least, it's a requirement. Like everybody should do like even basic strengthening exercises because we're sitting away too much. I don't think everybody has to be a super strong athlete because it's up to anyone. For me, walking is not even an option. It's not an option.
You shouldn't count it as exercise. That's something you need to do.
Look, honestly, in my opinion, working out is what an athlete do. Walking is what a human being is doing.
That's a good example.
Like
man. That's good.
I always tease my athletes because now we have all the smart watches that counts your steps and everything. And I always tell them, I'm like, listen to me. Even if you're having a desk job, if you walk like less than 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day, you're not a human being. You're a vegetable. That's it. You're not doing your job as a human being. So, in my opinion, strengthening, like activity, weightlifting, whatever, is a really, it's a really good, I would say, bonus plus, like really, like I would highly suggest it. I would not say everyone should go to the gym. I mean,
not everyone could afford to go to the gym or so to speak, but
to exercise, like to do some planks at home or some exercises or
push-ups, high knees. There's so many different. There's so many at-home exercises.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I think there is always, especially nowadays with internet and everything, even for free, you can always go away, like find a way around and find some exercises that are good for you and that will always help you anyway. Well, but like my statement is walking is not an option. Going to the gym is an option. I highly recommend any kind of exercise done properly, but definitely like walking is not an option. And we're going to
walking's supposed to be the normal thing you do all the time. Like that's supposed to be
exactly. And that's actually a problem that I faced as a trainer when I came to Middle East is. When I was working out with my athletes, when I was working with my athletes in France and we're working out and they were reaching their goals most of the time, I'm really happy about it. And when I came here, okay, now let's go into that.
Let's get into it, man.
Yeah,
let's get into it. Let's make this the last segment of the show.
Exactly. So what happened is I used to have some athletes that used to come 4 times a week. Okay, 4 times a week they come. Early morning, 8 a.m., ready for the workout, and they push really hard. And we're going like for a very intense workout. It can be weightlifting, or sometimes we're doing sprints and like a lot of conditioning. Sometimes like really intense boxing workout. Like that was really, really intense. And they trained really hard. And I was impressed. I was like, wow, that's cool. That's amazing. And like after a month, after 2 months, they're just telling me that I'm not losing weight. I'm talking about people that wants to lose weight mostly. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm not losing weight. I don't understand why. Because I just finished the gym and I have my protein shake and I go through my normal day. And then I was thinking, I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what? Because I realized sometimes some people have very, very low metabolism. So it's really hard for them to lose weight and everything. Like you have a bunch of reasons for why they don't lose weight.
Yeah, everyone's different.
I just realized was like too many people were like that. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I began to question myself, trying to see that I always try to see the bigger picture. And I'm like, excuse me, I just I ask people, what do you eat? And they're like, I don't eat that much. I go to the coffee in the morning and I have like a pastry with my coffee with my Americano and then I go home and I have lunch and I have dessert. And then I have a snack in the afternoon with friends. And then I go out at night, like for another coffee or I have like dinner with the family or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, on the weekend, we have also family gathering. which is like a big thing in Kuwait. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, like it's family gathering. I have to let it go. I have to eat like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So I just realized, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing during your day? So they're just telling me like, oh, I'm in the office the whole day, or oh, I'm at home the whole day, or and you realize that people are just literally sitting or laying down the whole day, and it's just unbelievable. And I was so shocked because when I check the, like, you know, the smart watches that people are having, they're like, oh, I check and I see like 1,500 steps. And I check, wow, I see, that's not normal. That's not human. Like, here is the problem, you know? There is actually a really good book that I read, and that is called Desk Bound. Okay, it's a book that explains. It's like a 1,000-page book, but it's really interesting. It explains all the impact of sitting on health in general. And it was at a certain point, it was explaining that they made a test on people about standing desks. Okay, and they realized like people actually develop back pain out of standing up the whole day.
Yeah. They tried to do that switch in the States and other places to switch to the standing desk, but they didn't realize that it's just going to create a different imbalance.
The problem is people are so used to be sitting and having like a certain mechanic, shorten muscles and lengthening muscles. So when they stand up, they're just not used to it. So what they've been creating now is certain standing desks that you can like go for different positions. You can lift up one leg and put it on the scale. You have like certain specific seats that you're not completely sitting. You're just like kind of just laying on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty comfortable. I've tried. It's like it's pretty fine actually. And they've been doing a test about this, like a study or research. They checked the calorie consumption for 8 hours on people working in those offices. Okay, so they went to the office and they put all this those machines to calculate, like to check the calorie consumption, and they realized they've been consuming out of 8 hours of work in the office 300 calories. Okay, that's what your body needs to function.
Yeah, especially if you're sitting down and doing nothing all day. Yeah,
exactly. Calorie. Let's say like your brain working sometimes. So you're here and you're working all day. You let's say you burn 300 calories. Okay, just to give like an average, 300 calories. It's a salad from Caribou.
Yeah,
300 calories is like let's say like 2 slices of bread with, I don't know, maybe a spoon of peanut butter and maybe a slice of turkey. Yeah. I don't know. Like
it's a small meal. It's a very small meal.
Exactly.
Like it's literally, like you said, a salad, half a teaspoon of peanut butter, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and they made the test with people standing with those like specific standing desk where you can just like lay on let's say I'll call it like a high seat, or like just move, like don't be static but move around. And then realizing people were consuming 1,300 calories in 8 hours.
Oh wow.
Just by the fact of being standing up in 8 hours, which is like a normal day of work.
It's going to speed up your metabolism. You're standing, you're using muscles differently. Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense.
You're burning an extra 1,000 calories. I mean, I'm using calories as a let's say like as a unit, as a way of seeing the energy consumption. I'm not into like specific calories and everything. I think that's the best way we have to calculate the amount of food that we're eating.
Yeah.
I don't think it's perfect.
Yeah, it's definitely not accurate because everyone's different. You could burn 1,000 calories doing an activity where I burn 500, or
definitely.
So it's everyone's different, and
I do not agree with the fact that for me eating 100 calories of potato chips is not the same as eating 100 calories of apple.
Oh yeah, it's completely yeah. I love that. I love the dietitians. Oh man, we'll get into that one later on.
Yeah. So honestly, that's not the same. But in my opinion, calories is like the least worst, I would say, like way of calculating how we eat, of having an overview of what we eat, basically. So hopefully in a few years we can maybe like find out there is another way to calculate how you eat, how much you eat, and how you should eat. Let's say
it's definitely bound to happen. It's definitely bound to happen. And I mean, one of the things I do personally is at work. every half an hour, I try to get up and do 20 air squats. I try to get up and do 20 push-ups.
That's
or,
perfect.
Do a plank, do side planks, because your obliques, I've noticed, I've been, right now it's peak season for me at work. So I've been sitting down a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's harder for me to get my half an hour, 2-minute or 3-minute workout in, because I've got people in my office all the time.
Exercise shots.
Yeah. It's really difficult. And, at lunchtime, I will walk 3,000, well, not 3,000, about 2,000 steps around the building outside, because the weather's nice. You get some vitamin D with the sunlight, some fresh air. So, I think that's a good message that you're sending to tell people, hey, you have to move around. Try and incorporate more movement throughout the day, because it's going to make more of a difference when you come to the gym and when you're just in daily, daily life. So I think it's a beautiful message you're sending out to people.
I think it's a huge boost, actually. Even in your weight loss, and now I'm talking to everyone that wants to lose weight. Honestly, go to the gym. It's amazing. It's going to shape up your body. It's going to give you like an athletic shape and like build up like a balance and proper athletic body. But honestly, let's say you're going to the gym and you're doing an hour workout, okay? And let's say even you're really dedicated and you come 20 minutes before to warm up properly. So you get an hour and 20 minutes working out. That's amazing. That's great. That's like, I really respect people that do that, because honestly, that's why I tell people, you're coming PT or to class, you're paying for the membership. You're dealing with the traffic. You're taking out of your personal spare times, and you come here and you give 100%. I highly respect that, honestly. And honestly, I think that's what keeps me motivated to be a trainer. So I'm like, wow, those people are motivated. That's amazing. That's great.
It's tough. It's very difficult. Even for me, to get four days in at the gym a week is extremely difficult. So sorry, not to cut you off. Go on. Yeah.
No, but really, I respect that. For anyone, no matter your level, that's amazing. But you're going to work out and you're going to burn around, it really depend on people a little bit. You might burn between 5 to 1,000 calories. Let's say an average of 700 calories, okay? 750 calories that you're going to burn in the gym in one workout. Imagine having like doubling it, okay? So having the double, so 1,500 calories, just because you've been walking more, just because you've been standing more.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not telling people, okay, go get a standing desk. I know it's not easy for everyone. But what I'm saying is like, if you can just start by walking more, if you can just start by, okay, you're at home, you're just scrolling on Instagram and not doing anything. Okay, go and grab your phone, go on iTunes, go into Project Kuwait and listen to a podcast while you're walking around in the neighborhood.
There we go. Attaboy.
Like just listen to podcasts, or what I give, like I always do that once a week. I go for a walk alone and I just grab my phone and I just give a call to my family in France. Like I call my brothers and sisters, I call my friends, and I call my old friend, whoever I call. I just always like call someone, and I end up maybe walking for 45 minutes. And just like 45 minutes, I don't know, it's going to be 1,600 steps extra, which is actually really good.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I know I'm talking to all the people that are having, those Apple Watches, Fitbit and everything, Garmin. Okay, that gives you like a rough estimation of your steps, which is interesting. Always try to go above 8,000. Always, every day, and no rest day.
You'd be surprised, man, how hard it is to get above 8,000.
I know.
It is extreme. Like I have my watch set on 8,000 is my goal, because I know that's a realistic goal to get to. And when I was training people, when I was taking on PTs, I would give people a goal of 4,000. Imagine, it is that difficult nowadays to get to 4,000 steps in a day. So it's really, it is tough. I can sympathize with it, but you're right. People have to take your kids out to play.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing I do with DJ is I get home from work. I drive 3 hours a day and then I'm sitting for 7 hours. So I'm basically sitting for half my day, 12 hours a day. So when I get home, I try to stand up, play around with DJ. I'll even roll around on the ground with him, whatever. And I take him for a walk or whatnot. So, I think the message you're sending to the listeners, your clients, is such a valuable message, such an important one. And Yeah, I think if people follow some of your basic principles,
Yeah.
it would definitely help them out in the long run.
The funny part is like, I actually learned that not from myself. It's just, when people are telling me, because I know like people travel a lot over here, like they like to go to London, to the States, and they're all telling me the same thing. They're like, man, you don't understand. I was in London. I felt so good. I lost weight. I was eating out every day and I lost so much weight. I felt so good. Like I could almost see my abs and everything. I'm like, yeah, what was different? Like, oh, I was walking all day.
It makes a big difference. Yeah, definitely makes a big difference.
So I understand. Like, just to maybe I think like conclude on that.
Well, before we wrap things up, what's your project right now?
In
general in life, what's your project? What project do you have going on right now that you could tell the listeners about, and then tell them how they can find you? We'll definitely put your contact info in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
So my project now, I work as a personal trainer. I'm let's say going more toward like rehab and fixing postures, fixing pain, but still like my creed is to like from pain or from injury to strength. Like I'm not a huge fan of just like basic rehab, but just like lifting your arms forward and just like fix the problem and feel better, but more like, okay, now that you're feeling better, let's make sure this will never happen and build up like a proper strong body. Like I'm not talking about becoming professional, but like just being strong and feeling good, like training, like just dragging you toward this culture. So my project for the future, I'm actually studying now. I keep it as a secret so far.
That's awesome, man.
But people are gonna find out. Let's say sooner or later. I'm actually studying now because I'm planning to like, let's say, add up a good value at my knowledge. And
that's amazing, man. The best project to have is a self project. That's amazing.
Honestly, look, I'm gonna tell you the truth. In my opinion, I'll give you my overview on the fitness business or fitness industry in the next few years. For me, we're gonna have I don't know if I think I told you that before. We had like a few talks here and there, but in my opinion, we're gonna have a merge between trainers and all the jobs related to physiotherapists. And,
I agree. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming sooner or later. My
opinion, in the society we're living in now, if we are not, us trainers, coaches, whatever, being more serious and more educated and more whatever professional, we will never reach that level that we're supposed to reach. In my opinion, I always take my job as I should be considered the same way as a doctor.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people crying in front of me. I've seen people like in pain. I've seen people coming to me being depressed and be like, I don't feel good in my body. I feel like I hate myself. And I've seen people like getting a huge transformation. And honestly, it just humbles you because you're like, wow, that's amazing. Like when you start being a coach, you just think about the fitness part, but you don't understand how much you can help people. And honestly, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do, period.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, it's always good to meet a trainer that's not full of crap and someone that's not more worried about their Instagram being popular versus giving people the right knowledge that they need. So thank you, Saad, for joining us. And hopefully we can definitely have you on again.
Definitely.
Hopefully Meg will be here next time.
I mean, that would be really cool.
She was looking forward to this, and she sent me a message. She was having major FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Hey, I had to explain that one to me. But we'll definitely have you back on here when Meg and Liam are back. And, thanks, man. Thanks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for receiving me, and hope to see you again.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You can also find us on Instagram at The Project Kuwait. Thank you, and join us next time.